Okay, so this is the second lecture of the Antigone lecture. It will certainly not be as long as the first lecture. I do want to begin by um, by um, um, reviewing the battle lines. Again, between Antigone and Creon, Antigone siding with conventional law, the laws that are made by human beings that largely depend upon what works for them, right? Um, you know, covers a lot of different issues like education. Uh, certain cultures have different educational systems. Um, are they right or wrong? Well, let's see. That's an open question. Certain kinds of dress, certain kinds of ways of organizing work. Um, you know, um, Southern climates like to sleep in the afternoon. They have dinner at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night. Is there something wrong with that? No, it's based upon the climate. Okay, so these are conventional laws that uh, they they if they conventional law fails to recognize that it's merely conventional and devolves by habit or not failure to reflect on its own nature and refuses to acknowledge certain its own limits, which are natural laws, it becomes absolute, tyrannical, and must defend itself with force. So Creon represents that. Antigone represents natural law, um, and um, her, I'm not accusing her of failing to recognize this, although I do think certainly with Ismene she fails to recognize it, and with Creon she fails to at least allow him a way out. I think she does kind of allow him a way out. That who knows, maybe the evil ones are treated just as well as the good ones in Hades. That might be a form of agnosticism. It might be a way to say, hey, Creon, shut up. Maybe it's rhetorical. In which case, then she doesn't let Creon off the hook. And then she's failed to recognize, and I think ultimately she does fail to recognize this. She fails to recognize that if you invoke natural law, you have to remember that you're subject to the law, and you're subject to conventional law as well. You don't possess absolute knowledge and the full truth. You have to acknowledge the possibility for error. It all depends on how you read that line. Who knows, in Hades, maybe that's blessed. Is that a rhetorical question, or is that really true? Is she letting Creon off the hook? It depends on how that particular actor voices that and what tone of voice. So you see that I think Sophocles is leaving Antigone open for interpretation here. Creon has very little wiggle room. Maybe at the beginning he was fearful and maybe that's what motivates him. This is his first law after all. Maybe he's motivated by fear. He doesn't know what to do. He's not sure of himself. Tyrants frequently are very unsure of themselves. So that's the order of conflict. That's the basic situation we have. All right, so Haman leaves, tells Creon to go rule in a desert all by himself because that's what tyranny leads to. And the chorus now picks up at 781 to 800, and they sing of love. They sing of love. The languages of nuptial issues, of marriage, Antigone's death is a form of marriage, is a wedding. The key line in the whole thing is at 795, where the chorus says, the winner will be desire. The winner will be desire. Whose desire? Antigone's desire? I think so. I think this play is about Antigone's desire in the context of her absolute love, unswerving love, and in the context of a kind of deep commitment to principles. But of course, those principles are clouded by this desire, which is natural, if I'm right, that it's for Polynices. So the wedding, I think there's no other way to interpret this, that if her death is her wedding, it's she's going to be with Polynices to lie with him. So the nuptial images, the images of marriage, these are very strange. They only make sense, I think, in the context of Antigone's illicit desire with Polynices. So we have Antigone with the chorus here. And I think this again confirms my point. If it's Haman, if her death is the wedding with Haman, then she should be making preparations to be with him. And in fact, she says she will never marry. So she renounces Haman. Poor guy, right? It is better for him. The chorus gives her glory, but also calls her extreme and impetuous. So that makes my point, right? Her principles, she defends her principles. But principles can get really messed up when the personal desires and personal interests cloud the issue like they do with her. It's a very important point. To principles, any political program that's principled has to be extremely on its guard and be always on the up and up, very transparent, and driven by justice. So she's given glory. Her principles are great, but she's extreme and impetuous. So you can go overboard in defending your principles. And again, the way Sophocles dramatizes this is brilliant. More evidence for Polynices, Antigone's desire for a dead brother Polynices. At 869, oh, my brother, she says, you were married once, but what a disaster it was. Your death snuffed out my life. So she links his own marriage with her own death, and his death. And Creon says, let her go in the embrace of her covered tomb. The word embrace. And Antigone, my tomb, my marriage. She really, I think, even undermines her own claims about family when she denies that she would perform libations for a dead child or a husband. This is a deep contradiction in her principles. And again, principles are one thing, personal desires are another. Is there a sense of regret in the language at 921? What have I ever done against divine justice? How can I expect a God to help me in my misery? To whom should I pray now? Do you see? They are counting all my reverence to be irreverence. If the gods really agree with this, then suffering should teach me to repent my sin. But if the sin belongs to those who condemned me, I hope they suffer every bit as I do now. That is a woman whose will is made of steel. No forgiveness there. I'm not sure we need to look for any there. I'm just making a point. But Is she open to the possibility of repentance? Perhaps. The gods really agree with this, then suffering should teach me to repent my sin. But if the sin belongs to those who condemned me, I hope they suffer every bit as I do now. Right? That's rigid justice. Again, that's what she likes. She likes justice and sides with it. So only Antigone will know, and we can't know. Her punishment is to be entombed alive. The chorus relates this, and they sing these horrible stories of familial punishments. Creon's, remember the line, right? The line of the earth. That margin itself, the line is contested between Zeus and Hades. Different rights, living and dead, right? Very different rights. Is there linkage? Perhaps. For the Greeks, that's not so clear. Is there justice in Hades? It's unclear. The Greeks seem to think it's just all miserable. It's kind of half-life. But notice what Creon has done. Creon has totally violated. You either kill her, you either punish her by execution, or you forgive her and say, I made the law, but there's an exception. No, he buries her alive. He puts her underground with Hades while alive. This is, whatever he's done before this is a tremendous transgression. He is now affronted. He has now usurped Hades' rule. He may, as long as she's alive and above the ground, he can appeal to Zeus, and maybe he's possibly right. But this is an act of violation of the gods. Zeus can't be happy with this either. So Tiresias comes in. You should admit you're wrong, to Creon. Creon accuses him of seeking his own profit. Right? He's a prophet seeking his own profit. It's a play on words. It's kind of a joke. Tiresias warns him, you've gone beyond the powers of law in punishing the dead. So if Tiresias is right, what he's done is transgress the laws of burial. I think furthermore, the laws of the living with burying Antigone alive. This is important. Tiresias says that Creon himself will suffer punishment of his own laws. Of his own laws. He will suffer punishment of his own laws. He will sacrifice his own family to the state, which is what he invoked. Tiresias. Sorry, I had to pause that, as you probably could see. Tiresias decrees or prophesizes that Creon will suffer. He's going to be the one to suffer the punishment of his own laws. Again, sacrificing his family for the state. Creon, unlike Oedipus now. So if you want to make this work from the beginning, you say, oh, Creon wasn't so sure. He wasn't a tyrant like Oedipus. He tries to rectify his errors. He listens to Tiresias. He, in one fell swoop, all of the things that he claimed. Remember the principle. In a state, you sacrifice the family to the state. In 1 minute, he will lose his family. Antigone has committed suicide. Creon comes in to release her just at the wrong time. Haman goes to stab Creon, misses, kills himself. And then Creon is told by a messenger that Eurydice has killed herself. So, like Oedipus, Creon has to suffer, is the only one who suffers the punishment for his own laws. They're tyrants. Tyranny leads to that. Unlike Oedipus, though, Creon blames himself. At 1261, Creon is beside himself. Oh, he says, the page 54, oh, howl for the sins of a stubborn mind, evil-minded, death dealing. Oh, you are witnesses. You saw those who killed and those who died, all in one family. Cry out against the sacrilege that I called strategy. Notice he's now recognized it was a ploy, it was a strategy. It was convention. It wasn't absolute principle. Oh, howl, my son, my young son, for your young death. You were expelled from life by my bad judgment, never yours. Yes, it is late, but you have seen where justice lies, the chorus says. Oh, yes, I have learned, and it is misery. Some god leapt full force onto my head and steered me onto a wild path, shaking my reins, and I've trampled joy with sharp hooves. Oh, weep, weep for the pain of human pain. So Creon blames himself. He goes on, 13:17, the grief is mine, all mine. I'll never pin the blame on anyone else that's human. I was the one. I killed you, poor child. I did it. It is all true. Now, my neighbors, please take me away. Take me quickly. I must not be underfoot. I am worth less than a nobody. A worthy request, the chorus says, if there's any value in suffering. Shortest way is strongest way when trouble's afoot. So Creon allows himself to be deposed. And then even further, the last lines of the play. My head bows to the fate that has leapt on it. Fate, right? It looks perfect, right? He has done it all. He's responsible, but in some ways it looks so perfect that it's fated. That's the paradox in Greek culture, and perhaps of human nature, of our lives. Given who we are, we do things. Given our character, who we are, we do things. Given our upbringing, we do things. Given our nature, predispositions, we do things. Could we have done otherwise? How can we even say that? Certain things are set up in such a way that lead us into suffering. We have a choice to accept it and to learn, or to deny it and continue to make mistakes. So the chorus really sums up the entire trilogy here, from the beginning of Oedipus to the end of Antigone. Wisdom is supreme for a blessed life, and reverence for the gods must never cease. Great words sprung from arrogance are punished by great blows. So it is one learns in old age to be wise. Right? So you notice the wisdom, reverence for the gods is the proper way to go about it. How do you learn that? Well, by transgressing. Hopefully it's not of the order of Creon's laws. Sometimes it is that bad. Sometimes it's cataclysmic, the destruction. But arrogance, hubris, pride lead to deep, profound suffering. And again, maybe the only way to learn reverence the gods is through that kind of suffering. So let me just this outline the order of conflicts, right? That I posted. As you can take a look at this. Right in the middle is Antigone and Creon, and Haman is in the middle of them below. Antigone denies Creon's grounds of objectivity. Creon defends position by appeal to right and wrong authority. Right, 519 to 521 articulate that. Antigone invokes family against marriage claims, so that's her conflict with Haman. Her conflict with Ismene is that she rejects her as a family. Her relationship with Hades is driven by desire for death and desire for Polynices. You've got on one side individual rights or natural law. On the top, very top, are all the rational arguments. On the bottom are the personal desires, right? So personal desires sometimes get into the way of principles, right? So notice that Antigone defends family and individual rights. She defends Hades, the common humanity of the dead, and that leads to natural law and individual rights. The other side, that common humanity and Hades, is in some ways in opposition with Zeus, the kingship, the state, and the community. That leads to conventional law and order, but can lead to tyranny when desires overrule. And Creon, in family against the principle of justice of the state, he suffers for it. So this is a diagram of basically every conflict in the play. So that's a way to move around that diagram. I have a few questions that I'll leave you with. Perhaps I'll leave these for you, and perhaps in the office hours I'll talk about them. But I'll leave them with you, and you can think about them, and hopefully many of you will join from 9 to 11, at least partially, for to talk about these. Maybe you can answer them. Final questions is, who is the tragic figure in this play? The play is called Antigone. Is she the tragic figure? What is Creon's fate determined by? What is the role of desire in this play? Both for Creon. What does Creon want? How does that affect his grasping for absolute rule? What does Antigone desire? How does that affect her principles? What's the role of suffering in the play? Is it knowledge? I think clearly that's true. That I'll answer that one. Creon answers that, and so does Ismene when she asks that question. She says, if the gods are right and I'm wrong, I'll learn by my suffering. If not, these people are going to pay. Creon's going to pay. Well, it turns out he does pay. Haman's claim in pointing out Creon's error that he is defending everyone. Antigone, Creon himself, and the gods. Let's assume that Haman is right. I think he's right. I think Haman is correct. He's defending everybody. At 749, everyone. Is there a solution to this conflict? What would it look like? the last question, who gets what they want in this play? It's a trick question. Who gets what they want in this play? I guess Haman doesn't really get what he wants. Does Creon get what he wants? Does Antigone really get what she wants? That's the final question. So I'm going to leave you with that, I think we'll we won't discuss this tomorrow, but this will be the topic of the office hours on Thursday. So hopefully you'll have read and seen the videos on Oedipus and Antigone by Thursday, and this will be the topic on Thursday. I'll come on office hours and answer these questions. All right, good. Bye.